I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Okay, everybody hit your
Please
chairs.
rise for
Throw
the
your
Pledge of
mouth in the
Allegiance.
chair.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Ms. Mason.
Mrs. Fryrick?
Here.
Mr. Posnow?
Here.
Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Mr. Scalette?
Here.
Mrs. Schrader?
Here.
Mr. Sears?
Here.
Mr. Toman?
Here.
Mr. Watts?
Here. And a reminder for many people in the audience, please silence your cell phones. And this is your first opportunity for public comment, if you would like to come up and speak.
The public has no comment this evening.
Thank you very much. So we have the minutes of the regular monthly meeting of June 18th linked here. Can I offer it to be approved as submitted?
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Sears.
You all have, as usual, a consent agenda with items that document the treasurer's report. And I would like to know if anybody would like to question any of these, and if not, I would move for approval of the below-mentioned items.
Second to that.
This can be a short vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. And for the big entrance, we will take the board president's report. You're up. I'm supposed to welcome you.
I'm entering. That was really sad. That was really sad.
Take that one off the job. Can you read my, you want to read? So I would like to welcome Dr. Williams.
Good thing you remembered his name.
Can you back that up just a few seconds and we get a do-over?
Take a few weeks off and, man.
Laughter is a very good thing. Laughter is
So,
a very
and really, that's all I have to say. I've said enough.
Is that true?
Less is more, right?
Everybody's at ease and comfortable now.
Yeah. So with that, I'll just launch into the superintendent's report then. I have something I prepared, and I'll just read parts of it, breeze through other parts of it. I'd like to thank Dr. Redding publicly for his service to York Suburban in his interim capacity. I'm very grateful for his efforts keeping the district moving prior to my arrival. In the vein of continuing to move forward, there are some personnel items on tonight's agenda, and I would like to keep you updated on the status of two personnel items that are not on the agenda tonight. They'll be on future agendas. The first one is the HR director position. We're at the finishing stages of that process. We're checking references right now, and we'll have a recommendation for the board likely at the next board meeting. And that person will report to either me or the upcoming assistant superintendent. That person will report to a commissioned officer. And along the lines of assistant superintendent, the application deadline is today. So we still may get one or two that trickle in tonight yet, which we would accept. But as of this moment, we have 34 applicants, which is a very significant number. Most of them have administrative experience, not all of them. And of the ones that have administrative experience, they all have building level and some have central office level experience. So we've got quite a mix of people who've applied for this position. As I mentioned, some do not have any administrative experience, and there are a few internal applicants, actually. These key positions are necessary for us to move the organization forward, and they are critical as I move through my entry plan. And as part of my entry plan, I've been meeting and will continue to meet with board members, administrators, and other members of the school community. Wendy has been really busy scheduling people into my calendar. My calendar is really blocked with a lot of meetings, but that's a good thing. It helps me understand what people's perceptions are of the district, where we've been, where we're going, and those kinds of things. That's very helpful for me. As we near the start of the 18-19 school year, we're closely monitoring kindergarten enrollment. I know that several of you have mentioned that to me and when we had an opportunity to talk face-to-face. As of today, we have 99 kindergartners enrolled at Valley View and 104 at Yorkshire. The district began the process last month of hiring an elementary teacher to accommodate the kindergarten numbers, and that recommendation is on tonight's agenda. From this point forward, we'll need to have conversations about class sizes and how we deal with them. So far, I've been hearing various viewpoints on this issue, so I know it is an important topic worthy of continued conversation. And with that then, we'll go to the actual enrollment report, which does not have the kindergarten numbers on it officially, because that's still in flux, but you have a ballpark of where we are right now with the kindergarten numbers. And the enrollment report will be on the screen. And my eyes are kind of old. Lauren's probably the only one who can actually read those words on there. But the enrollment report, I don't know, do they have a copy at their desk as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So the audience should be able to see that. The public should be able to see that without too much of an issue, because they're right there. Are there any questions about the data on the enrollment report that myself or one of the other administrators might be able to answer?
Just a question, it shows the school technology 35, is that projected for September enrollment?
That's anticipated,
Anticipated,
yes.
okay.
And we are slotted for 54,
I think so.
so we're,
50-some.
so we're down.
Yeah, we had low 40s last year, so, yeah. Yeah.
So that gives us some room if kids
Sure.
change their mind. Okay.
Yeah, and Dr. Ellis and I have had conversations about that as a resource, and maybe it's a little underutilized as a resource, and probably should be utilized a little bit more heavily for some students.
Along those lines, if I could just add, we had, our district had the highest number of campers. They do a week-long camp for middle schoolers to come and visit and see each shop a week's time they spend there, and York Suburban had the highest number of those. So that may well indicate middle school interest, which
And that's the time to
is
get them
positive, yeah,
exposed to that as an option.
right, so.
Yep. That's a good sign.
At York Adams Academy only has 5 of our 12 seats, but we had 12 people graduate last year, so I'm sure within the first 6 or 8 weeks, the guidance counselors will be in touch with us about testing. Did we make any efforts to try and get back some of the kids in the regional?
I can't speak to that as to whether we have or not yet. I don't know if Ton has any knowledge of that.
Except for the knowledge of the survey that I know Larry had put out,
Right.
you know, asking for their input.
Okay, just curious. That will be interesting, because they're opening their new school, their new building. The Regional Academy is opening their brand new 8th through 12th grade building this year, so, I don't know.
What was the kindergarten projected at 99 and what?
99 and 104, as of right now. Those numbers tend to go up between now and the day school opens.
Yeah.
Because we have, there are families that, for whatever reason, don't think to register their kindergartner for kindergarten until the day of school or the day before or the week before.
Or the week after.
Or the week after. That's not unusual either.
How about we start before Labor Day?
Yeah.
So, along those lines, the elementary position that we did last meeting was assigned that kindergarten spot is Yorkshire? Last meeting? So we talked about it, I guess, didn't we talk about it at our last meeting? Am I making that up? But it's for approval now.
Yes.
Oh, I
Yeah.
understand. The actual position was approved, I think.
Yeah.
Most likely will be Yorkshire, most likely.
Okay, that's what I was.
But we have elementary on there as the designation,
Right,
so that we have flexibility if we have to shift some things around.
okay, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. And then we
Any other questions on the enrollment report? Okay. Well, with that, I'd like to turn over to Dr. Stoltz for administrative report.
So, last year, some first graders wrote a little book about me, and it's called What Does Our Principal Do All Day? Very funny. They think I spend a lot of time watching the video cameras to catch them being good, or to see who might be peeing on the bathroom floor. But anyway, so in that vein,
Is that accurate?
there are no cameras in the bathroom.
No, you don't wanna know about that.
For those of you watching at home. So anyway, I just wanted to address, what does a principal do all day? Because I do get, in the summer, does a principal work all summer? I get so many puzzled looks when people say, oh, you work all summer. And I say, well, yes, I do, except I do have to say Dr. Williams is really encouraging us to take vacation and truly be on vacation. So I appreciate that sentiment. But anyway, so we do work all summer, and we're very busy all summer. And so just to summarize, my summer is really spent on 4 S's and then another S. Okay, so the 4 S's are supplies. If you walked in the building right now, lots of supplies, schedules, students, and then staffing and staff development. So staffing and staff development, most important. So we do spend a lot of time as an elementary division with hiring the best teachers. And so research shows that it is the teachers that affect student achievement, so we really do spend time. So I'm excited by Sarah Paczynski, wherever she ends up landing. She's a great one. In terms of staff development, then we really look at preparing the new teachers to get indoctrinated in all the great things that we do here at York Suburban. And then Dr. Monas and I, and then the elementary division, we really work at what is the staff development needed for the summer to keep moving them to be better in their teachers. And we do that by really looking at our data and seeing what we need in terms of staff development. Students, we do get students enrolled every day. I got 2 new kindergarten students today, so those enrollment figures are as of July 1st. The numbers, no?
No, the 104 is as of,
Because kindergarten's not on this paper. This paper is July 1st, but the kindergarten numbers aren't here, so
Oh, no, but I'm saying what you looked at on that chart is as of July 1st, and they change nearly daily. So as new students are enrolled, at least at the primary division, we need to screen the kindergartners. Those of you that have the little ones in our school, they come in for a little screening. It just really helps me to know where to best place the child, and it also gives me an opportunity to have the child and the parent in the building, and we just do a little tour, because our bigger registration for kindergarten is in the spring, and we have already done a little bit of a meet and greet. Student screening and new student tours, that's happening in the summer as we're walking around all the boxes that are coming in terms of our supplies. Schedules, we spend a lot of time looking at schedules because as we have different class sizes, different amounts of teachers, we're always reworking our schedules. And then we work as a whole K-12 division with our schedules, particularly when it comes to our related arts and how to fit that puzzle together. And I already mentioned supplies, so I spend a lot of time with supplies, schedules, students, and staffing. And then the 5th S is summer events. I think it's great that there was a time when the building was basically closed, and it was myself and Mr. Tim there all summer working together. But now our building is alive with students. So we have our summer library. You saw the little picture. We just had our superhero week, and we're coming into, tomorrow is Be Your Best Self at Yorkshire Elementary on Tuesday and Thursday. We're averaging 20 to 30 students, especially if you count the little siblings that are coming in. We had a summer camp for our kindergartners coming in. It was run through Community Ed. We had 15 students that did a little mini version of what is kindergarten like, and that's with Mrs. Kaufman. Now, the problem with that is I get lots of emails and like long letters then from these parents saying that Mrs. Kaufman is so wonderful, please can my kindergartner have Mrs. Kaufman? So I called Mrs. Kaufman and said, you make this really hard for me, that one S with scheduling, because you try to make parents happy. We also had our summer ELL summer check-in. Those of you that have met Laura Gordon over the years, and we have the Imagine Learning Grant, we incentivize the children to spend lots of time on their Imagine Learning over the summer, so they get to come in. We had, I shouldn't say we, she does it all, I just show up. But she had a really great donut party, donut games, all these kind of donut themes, and then she had the York Family Literacy resources there for parents to possibly sign up for English as second language classes. So there's 3 times that we meet during the summer, and students get prizes based on the amount of time that they spend on their Imagine Learning. Those of you who have seen the graph that we could have the research to show the more time they spend on their Imagine Learning, they come in with their scores are either higher, or at least they maintain over the summer. So it's been a great program. And then finally, Bright Horizons has their camp going on. They're in week 7 of their camp explorations. They have 4 more weeks to go, and their enrollment includes about 53 students from incoming kindergartners to 6th graders. So yes, our elementary buildings are open in summer, and we're very busy. Come by and you can help me with some supplies. No. Questions? Thank you. Oh, yes.
Could you tell us just a little bit about Imagine Learning?
Yes,
What
okay,
is
so
that?
Imagine Learning is the online program that is basic literacy and math skills for students. The beauty of it is that it has the primary language support. So if the child is doing, I don't know, something with, I don't know, and the directions can be done in Portuguese, it can be done in, their primary language to help them. And the original Imagine Learning grant, and then the Chromebooks now, they work through Ed Foundation grants. So it's beautiful when a child comes in. We had a child that registered today, a kindergartner Vietnamese. So Mrs. Gordon will also meet me when I do the kindergarten screening. She'll do her ELL screening, and then that child will leave with their Chromebook and then Imagine Learning account, and they'll be doing that until they enroll on August 22nd for kindergarten. So it really helps pump up their skills.
The library program, elementary library. Is it at your school, or is that the?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's in all 4 elementary buildings. Tuesdays and Thursdays, pretty much till the end of the summer now, from 8:30 to 11:30. It's not only checking out books, but we also have math games going on. We have, and each one's kind of doing their own thing. We have a special reader each hour. Sometimes the special reader is me, if you'd like to be a special reader. But we're trying to get Chief Hoff and our friendly policemen and different people in as our readers. The Chromebooks are out if they want to do any of our learning games on the 4-student tab. All right, thank you.
That is it for administrators.
Ms. Mason?
Thank you. First item, the administration recommends board approval for Frank J. Casillo to be exempt from paying real estate taxes for property located at 2608 Cambridge Road, York, PA. Parcel number is there, as approved by the Pennsylvania State Veterans Commission. This is a new application.
Second. Any comments? Yeah.
Therefore, this one and the next one, just as a matter of record, could you include the actual amount of the exemption in the minutes?
For this year, this particular one is $4,356.96.
Other?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Next item, the administration recommends board approval for William E. Kohler to be exempt from paying real estate taxes for property located at 2438 Brookside Lane, York, PA. Parcel is noted there, and this was approved by the Pennsylvania State Veterans Commission. This is also a new application. The current year's taxes is $2,509.62.
Motion?
I mean,
Second.
Comments? Questions? This can be a short.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. The administration recommends board approval of the contract with Core Design Group for the re-roofing of the East York Elementary for the 2018-19 fiscal year. The contract is on a time and material basis and is not to exceed 5% of the construction cost.
Second.
Comments or questions?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. The administration recommends board approval to advertise and solicit for bids for roof renovations at the East York Elementary to be completed the summer of 2019.
Second.
If that goes out for bid now, when does that get awarded to?
The hope is, from Core Design, the hope is that this can be out for solicitation for the bids and awarded by October.
Questions? Comments? This can also be a short roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. The administration recommends board approval of the 2018-19 service agreement with the Lincoln Intermediate Unit 12 for the language instruction educational program on a fee-for-service basis. This includes certificated instructional staff, assessment, consulting, advising, supervisory, and support services to the district. There is no fee change from 2017-18, which that fee is $91
per hour.
per hour, yes.
I mean,
Second.
Questions? Discussion? This can also be a short.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Informational is the donation in the amount of $3,513.71 from the Indian Rock PTO for transportation costs for grades 4 and 5 events and field trips. And then the facilities project update, I did hand out the timeline to everyone. That shows where we currently are as far as payments that have been made to date. And you'll notice in the change order column, we do have an item in there now as well. That actually is a net change. There were 2 credits and 1 add-on that gets us to that negative 10,415. As far as the projects themselves, East York is remaining on schedule at this time. As rooms in Phase 1 are being completed, our staff has started to clean and set those rooms back up for the beginning of school, so they're moving along. It's still a tight schedule, but they still believe we will be ready for the beginning of school. Middle school roof is also on schedule. We don't have a date yet of when they'll be starting here at the Ed Center in the maintenance building. We should know that the end of this week, beginning of next week. Seal coating, as you can see, is rolling right along. They will be done by the end of the month. Middle school chiller is also on schedule. That will also be done at the end of the month. Ed Center, and here the carpet and painting is done. And we're looking forward to having the staff, our in-house staff, getting their projects done, which Mr. Gerling will have a report on that as far as what they did do and how they accomplished all of their tasks. Any questions?
we talked about putting some railings up going into the main entrance.
At East York, yes, that will be done.
That will be done.
Mhm.
Okay, I've driven by and I know they've been busy at the other entrance and I wasn't sure, how they were gonna get that done.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm always curious to know what these estimates are relative to the bid award, and the last one has a more than $1 million difference, and I'm wondering how we make these estimates and come up with bids that are that much below the estimates.
That's because Phase 1, the estimate included more than what's actually being done for this year.
Does that mean it's being shifted into another year?
It is in part of that phase 2 for next year, yes.
So, is it possible to indicate how much of that estimate actually relates to the bid?
I will have to work with CORE on that.
All right.
Yes.
Questions?
I have
Yeah.
a question regarding the Indian Rock PTO donation.
Yes.
Actually, a member of the public asked me this. Let's say East York Elementary doesn't raise that much money. Are they going on different kinds of field trips? Or, I guess the question was, because one PTO earns money and the other PTO doesn't, does that mean one school gets to do more than the school that PTO didn't earn as much money?
What it will actually mean, what it's done in the past actually, is if the PTO doesn't pay it, then the cost falls on the parents. So it's a matter of, does the principal or the teacher say, this is a field trip we'd like to do, and they go out to the parents? Or is there some other way that they come up with, or don't do the field trip or the event?
So the answer then is yes. If the PTO doesn't raise the money on one side of town or the other, then the hand goes out to the families.
Correct. And I think I know where the question is coming from. There is an issue I've just been made aware of with the East York PTO. There are no officers. So,
See, you got more information.
yeah, I just
kind of stumbled my way through.
I just
everything that-
found this out late in the day on Thursday, and I actually have to follow up with Attorney Say on what some of we may be able to do there or may not be able to do as far as fundraising and that type of thing, because there is no PTO.
Well, I would just say, as a board member, that doesn't sit well with me, that because the PTO doesn't earn the money, therefore the children are not able to do the field trips, which in theory are meant to be educational, meant to be supplementing the income. So if,
Right, but if they weren't budgeted for, then that is another
If
area
one
that
side of
needs to be
town has
considered.
the money and the other side of town doesn't, then there should be some kind of,
this is my concern.
Yep.
In my mind, the PTO earns the money, it goes into a kitty, and both sides of town are in a position to utilize said money, as opposed to one side having it and one side having not. Just my opinion, but
But your PTOs are by building.
At this point, if I can interject, at this point, the approved field trips have been consistent on the grade levels.
That's also
We do
good
keep that,
information to
we
know.
keep that consistent. What might be different, and I'd have to ask the principals, is I think they do have some kind I think Indian Rock does a 5th grade, special send-off day or part, and I think East York may do a different kind of 5th grade special send-off event, just for their 5th graders that might, I'm not sure if that still happens. I know that used to happen, they were a little disparate there, perhaps.
so this doesn't
On the way they
imply
send
that
them
the
off.
east side of town doesn't go to
But
a concert.
as far as
and
we've tried to keep that consistent between the K-2 buildings and the 3-5 buildings for that very reason, that everybody has that same experience.
well, and that's my point. I don't
But
want to get
again,
to be to the haves and the have-nots.
There may be that they need to go to parents for some help on admission. Like, I'm not sure the PTOs address that in the same way. Sometimes they have to go, and sometimes they set a set amount for each student. Sometimes it's, a set amount for the grade level,
Right,
that kind of thing.
right.
I'll just interject here. I think that highlights somewhat of an issue with all of these third-party organizations that are tapping into the district. By my last count, I think we have 7 or 8 different organizations that have their hands out, and I'm a member of one of the boards of one of them. And I'm not
Your
saying
hands out, taking or you giving?
both.
Well,
Asking from the same
Yep.
pool of people.
It's confusing to the parents, because they're all trying to explain what's going on that first intro period. And to your point, we've got some parents that are just enrolling their kindergartner on day one of school, and now they're getting hit up from YSEF, Dollars for Scholars, CTC, the Booster Club, the PTOs, the sports organizations, clubs. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what they're doing. What I am saying is that a coordination of the efforts might serve the interests of the organizations as a whole. So when we have issues like East York not having a PTO, Indian Rock having a PTO, and fundraising being disparate between the two communities, they need to talk with one another.
Should this model itself on what music did, where band and orchestra and everything came together and is just a common collection?
I almost think it's like a United Way type of situation, or a Cultural Alliance type of situation. I am not knocking any of these organizations individually. What I am saying is that these aren't little fiefdoms, where they're all trying to do what's right for the kids of the district because the parents care. The problem is the communication is not going on amongst them. And whether that's individuals leading it, or whether that's the organizations themselves or the volunteers not having the time to communicate with one another. I don't know what the answer is. I've been screaming it from the other side as a board member of one of the third-party organizations that you guys need to talk, because there's too much money being raised. And when I see other school districts, which I don't perceive as being on the level of suburban, having funds that are in the mid-seven figures, and we're not even close to that when you take all of our third-party organizations together. That's a problem. That is a problem. So I don't mean to get on my soapbox about this, but I do mean to get on my soapbox about this. This is we have two different sides to the district, East York, Indian Rock, but it doesn't matter. Our parents care, and they all come together at middle school.
So while you're on your soapbox, what's your recommendation to get this communication kicked off?
Sit them all down.
Right.
Leader of every single organization with either Dr. Williams and yourself, or somebody from the board needs to get them all together, because they're all raising funds with the perceived York Suburban behind it. I know it's not legally behind it, but it doesn't matter. Look at the YSEF symbol. Looks very familiar to the York Suburban symbol. All I'm saying is if we get them to sit down and say, what's your mission? What's your mission? What's your mission? Oh my gosh, that's the same, that's the same, that's the same. When I hear that my neighbor was president of the PTO, they bought Chromebooks for a third grade class for their PTO, and I'm saying, well, our organization just bought Chromebooks for an organization. Wow, did we just double spend? It's just silly. It's silly they don't talk to each other.
Well, and I just, to piggyback on that, as a former president of the All Sports Booster Club, we made a huge effort in that era money was earned at the concession stand or selling or whatever the fundraising event was, and money was divvied out equally. And there wasn't a volleyball club and a basketball club and a track club. And that money was divvied out evenly. And I guess, maybe as socialistic as this sounds, but I think we're all, after the same goal, is maybe that's the way we ought to look at PTO. Because just because my child has a neighbor who has the expendable income to buy whatever they're selling, and that PTO then therefore gets to go on a, cooler field trip than the one across town whose neighbor can't afford to buy and support, is kind of what I'm driving at. And if we could sit down, and again, as a former those organizations, if we all sat down at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, they're supposed to all meet with the business manager or superintendent or somebody to make sure they're, coordinating their financial side correctly. And I would just support that and say they should all sit down in some kind of council sort of setting and say, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is what our goals are and where we spend our money. And that really worries me, that one side of town is going to get one thing and the other side of town isn't, because the York Suburban Way has always been to meet those needs, equitably, because as Jane said, they all come back together in the middle school, at the middle school, and we're then all one big happy family.
Well,
By-
I think
by policy.
I've always raised the question that, within one school or the other, or we just talked about, like, about the, music department trip next spring. I want to make sure that there's money for those children who may not have money, that there has to be money made available to
Same
them.
idea.
And I think having all of these organizations, people in the community looking in, just see, as James said, you know, all these hands out. And this is of a concern to people who are in fundraising business in the community, that our organization's taking a lot of money, which means maybe there's not as much money out in the community for United Way or some of the other community, the Cultural Alliance or something like that. So I have to be very careful, and maybe the time has come that we have to review how we look at these organizations and their positions within York Suburban School District, you know, and what they're doing and how they're operating, maybe, as their population has changed.
Can you get a list of the people, and I will come?
Yeah, with Wendy's help,
Yeah.
yes.
It's already set up that the beginning of August, Dr. Williams and I meet with, all of the officers
Together or individually?
together. It's one big meeting. It's by policy, we do that every year because I talk to them about what they need to get me as far as their financial records, and then we go over anything that,
Just assuming you're gonna have a PTO leadership and...
well, it's to everybody. It's to everybody, all of the PTO officers, it's to the boosters, it's to the music, boosters. It's every organization that works under, the only ones that aren't there are YSF, but CTC is there, and so is Dollars for Scholars.
I think this brings up something that, as we face budgetary issues and we have certain things that pop up, like band uniforms, for example, those are perfect things and candidates for third-party organizations that believe in the YS mission to support versus having to cut, say, the salary or having to cut a position by not adding a position just to pay for band uniforms. There's monies out there. We're just not coordinating the effort. I'm telling you that we're not coordinating the effort. And it's not for us as a board to tell them what they can or can't do. But if we can facilitate a communication between them and driving toward a common purpose, there I think we get a lot of headway.
Well, and some of that is drawing the fine line between what we expect as, from the taxpayer, from the board, in terms of what is curricular related and what is sort of extra. In terms of, like, I mean, an argument could be made either way. Well, band uniforms, if you're gonna have a band uniform, a marching band, then is it not our responsibility as a board to provide those uniforms? And an argument could be made on the other hand, hey, wait a minute, there's a third party out there who's prepared to do it. So I think part of that comes with, you know, is the field trip really curricularly related? And if it is, then that's something the board ought to be funding. If it's not, then that's something the PTO ought to be funding. So it's kind of, you know, waffling in terms of, you know, what is curricular and what isn't, at least in my mind. So it sounds like there's some...
Yeah, here's the good news. The good news that on the athletic side, and I was happy to discover that there's one overarching booster, because you have no idea.
Yes, I do.
Well, maybe, yeah, you probably do.
We do.
That's a nightmare when that's not the case, and you have all kinds of Title IX issues that you have to contend with and all that kind of thing. So that's wonderful. When we have that meeting, we're going to approach that from the standpoint of what has been done in the athletics world and try to apply that to the non-athletics world so that there is some synergy and cooperation and collaboration. Because I hear what you're saying, and it makes sense. It made sense for athletics, and it's working. So that's a well, I suppose.
We can have an offline discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, are there any schools out there who use a foundation kind of method for their fundraising and whatnot?
Redline.
It's a streamlined kind of, may not
The regional
Red
charter
Line.
school uses their foundation.
foundation.
That's how they built
They
their
don't
high
have-
school.
They don't have a PTO at Redline?
No, athletics.
Oh.
They're all of their sports clubs run through the local Redline rec community, and they all feed into one overarching organization, and then
Similar
when
model.
one's
Yeah.
bubbling and one's not, They're able to move funds around.
Right.
Right.
Same concept here. And they do a wonderful job. I will go on record saying Red Line, all the stories I've heard, they're the ones that I was referring to that has an endowment that's in the seven figures. We are not. If they can do it out of Red Lion, we can do it out of Suburban. They're doing a wonderful job. I would say, let's replicate. Anyway.
Well, I want to make a slightly different comment. I agree 100% with everything you said. I think we need to make it easier for people to give their money. Because every one of those organizations, you write a check and you put it in your envelope and you write your name on it. I mean, it's easier to go on and pay for your fees for. I can go online and I can pay every fee my student has in Infinite Campus in like 3 minutes. And we should facilitate the collection of money for those organizations. We would get more money into our PTOs if we didn't make it hard to get it.
I'm not sure we can.
Why are you shaking your head no?
I honestly don't care what the rules are. Figure out the tool, figure out how we can facilitate it. We don't have to manage that money. Help it. Facilitate it.
Well, I don't provide my legal advice in public, but I will say, one of the concerns with taking on the financial resources of an outside organization means that we are inherently tied to that organization's success or failure, which has implications relative to our audit and how we manage our funds. So there are rules relative to doing that. There's reasons why they are separate, and they can certainly be supported and managed separately in a very positive way, such as you were suggesting Red Lion does. It does not mean the district has to manage all of it for it to be successful. So we just need to be careful of that as you talk about it moving forward. But I understand what you're talking about.
There's always
because it is difficult to give by check.
It's easy to say no, we can't. I mean, there's no way that we cannot facilitate some kind of easy online way to donate money into the system.
We could probably find a way to do a common gateway.
Yes, that's all I want.
As a methodology, but not in any way tied to ours financially, totally separate.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not saying
There's
that.
always ways to make it better, definitely. But we need to maintain some.
Perfect. Call everything food. Then they don't have to
That's a
donate
good one.
anything.
That'll keep the auditors,
We're instantly $200K to the good right there.
Start that fund.
the auditors will have a field day with that one, bring them on.
Free weekend breakfast, too.
Could feed them at the ball games.
Ms. Geyer.
So, as summer flies by, there have been a variety of activities taking place all around the district. All the youth camps have been tremendously successful so far. In the coming week, the Impact Foundation will be reorganizing and taking inventory on its closets in each school to prepare for the quickly approaching school year. On August 3rd, 10 representatives from our high school student council will be attending a Minithon Leadership Summit in Hershey in order to meet with representatives from other schools to share our successes and failures and learn from those of others. As for athletics, I'd like to recognize all the spring sports athletes who earned spots on the York-Adams County All-Star teams. We had a lot, or else I would have listed them all. Our baseball coaches, our baseball coach, Casey Markey, and our softball coach, Larry Dalton, both won Coach of the Year for their sports. And I thought this was interesting. A York Daily Record report concluded that York Suburban placed 4th out of 10 schools in the county for best overall athletic year. So that basically combines all the records from all the sports and takes in, it's like a giant equation that they do. And then lastly, on behalf of the student body, I would like to welcome Dr. Williams. We're excited to have you here. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. You have the committee meeting schedule is linked online for now through, I think it's December. Mr. Robinson, Communications Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Posnell. The communications report is provided. I would also like to add that the website has been revised and is up and running. We will pause now for the uproarious approval of my colleagues on the board.
Is it complete or is it a work in progress?
It is a work in progress. There's certainly things that we're adding continuously, but it is substantial.
Okay.
And significantly different, I would add. I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's a tremendous improvement. Pardon?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Joel.
Was that written in-house, or did we use a package and modify it? What's the underlying architecture?
It's a WordPress site, so it's built on WordPress. It's created in-house. It is housed locally, so, yeah, nominal cost to the district.
You're on a roll. Keep going. Personnel.
Well, actually, I was going to add one more thing for communications, if I may. The committee is looking forward to some summer meetings upcoming, working closely with Dr. Williams, and looking at the expanded role that the communications committee can assume to further the goals and objectives of the district. If there are no questions, that concludes my report.
Keep going.
Now, personnel. Consent agenda, you have before you the personnel report, which includes retirement, resignation, employment, transfers, reassignments, building changes, leave of absence, reappointment of fall coach, volunteer fall coaches, and volunteers, I think that means. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below-mentioned items.
Second.
Questions? Comments? Yes.
I'd just like to comment on behalf of Sue Grove, who'll be retiring after 34 years from the office staff. Really a real asset to this district, has really put together the concept of the HR, the human resources person, and I think they will, I'm sure Sue will spend as much time as she possibly can with the new person we hire and really get them on board, but she has really been an outstanding member of the staff, and I think quite an asset to this district in her 34 years. I remember when she started, this office was set up very differently. You walked in the front door, there was a counter, and then there were 4 people just sitting like in an area, and one of them was Sue Grove, so she's had a long, good career with us.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. The transfer, the tech integrator going back to the classroom, have we changed the tech integrator piece? Do we still have tech integrators and somebody will be stepping into that, or have we worked away from tech integrators? I know Dr. Williams is probably not, I don't know if you can help me or not.
In the elementary, we still retain Ally Cunningham, who's teaching some English and integrating then for K through 12. And really, I shouldn't say we've veered away from the elementary. I think the thing is that most of the high school, we're very confident, and they're probably utilizing less, and so her time, so the amount of personnel and time we need for integration across the board has lessened, and so we're just using Ally.
Okay, so
And
she's the tech integrator.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
thank you.
Other questions, comments? I think this can be a short.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
That concludes my report.
Additional committee reports, Lincoln Intermediate Unit, anything?
JOA, we actually have our first summer meeting next week over at the Learning Center. And York Adams Academy, I'll continue on there. Hired a new teacher this summer, still looking for an office assistant. And the first day of school for York Adams Academy is August 15th for the students. That concludes my report.
Ms. Mason?
No report.
Ms. Schrader?
Yes, just encourage you, as I always say, these are our students as well, to read the mini board report that is attached. We have a meeting Thursday of this week, but as far as I'm aware, things are moving right along. I shared earlier, that was my one takeaway point, that we did have a really good turnout for that camp, and I know we sort of all are hoping to be able to utilize the technical school for our students, perhaps a little greater detail. So hopefully that is a good sign.
I would like to recognize their member of the community that is sitting through with us, thick and thin. Yeah.
I understand that we have, along with the fireside chats that we have with the Education Association, we're also going to be having them with the Act 93 administrators this year. Did I understand, Lois Ann, you mentioned that at the meeting?
That is correct.
If we could get the schedule for those and who you anticipate circulating board members through might be helpful for some of us whose calendars already look like
Okay.
messes, that would really be helpful. And also, I'd like to know, perhaps this is for Mr. Henry, where on the website we're going to be able to post, contracts, so the superintendent's contract, teacher's contracts, whatever it is, in a place where the, public can get them without having to file a right to know, because it is something that they are entitled to have. They've been placed in open session, and I don't think they should have to file a right to know, and they shouldn't be in our confidential section only. They should be someplace that the public can access them on the website. Where that is, I have no idea.
That's new, we didn't have that on our old.
No, on the old one you
Correct.
did, you had all the contracts over here in that confidential
Right.
section. After we had passed them in open session,
Right.
which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense if you think about it. They should be someplace where the public can do it and doesn't have to fill out a right to know, request.
Yeah.
It's public information.
And that's been my experience where I've been before, we had them just out there for, yeah,
Where
we'll
they have
take
to
care
be-
of it.
Where they have to be, you know, or something like that would make more sense, I think. Thank you.
You have the board meeting and committee schedules published again. This is your last opportunity for public comment. Oh, one more?
Yeah, there's one item that I omitted from my report, and I ask your indulgence and forgiveness. Spring Garden Township probably saw the last edition of the Springettsbury Township newsletter, and they want in.
Oh,
They
good.
want information on this. Thanks to Ken Watts.
Good work.
Good, okay.
Your communications committee at work.
Way to go there, pal.
Last chance for public comment? No? We're adjourned. Thank you.